Welcome. Today we're looking at another multi-tool from the 1800s. This one's a little bit more of a conventional design and was patented in August 1860. This was patented by Mr. William Russell out of Massachusetts. And the patent describes a combination wrench and vise. Mr. Russell describes the use for this tool as being a simple device for farmers and others who require few tools for general purpose. Now, as with many of the tools that we'll be looking at in this series, there's no record of this thing going into any kind of production. However, an example of Mr. Russell's vise and wrench was shown at the 10th Massachusetts Charitable Mechanics Association exhibition in 1865. So 5 years after the original patent date, he was still trying to get this thing off the ground. The design here is very simple. On the one side, we have basic square head wrench, fairly common for the time. On the other side, there's some very rounded jaws to form a vise. Although these are repeatedly referred to as lips in the patent description. The tool handle can slide into this bracket, which would be mounted to a sturdy bench of some sort. You then can insert a handle and operate these longer jaws like a bench vise. There's a couple potential issues with this one, but perhaps the screw location for one. But let's go ahead and see if I can build it and check it out. nice. A lot of mill time on this one. Obviously back in the day when this was patented, most of these parts probably would have been cast in one way or another. But as I said before, very, very simple design. There's really only 4 parts to the main tool itself here. I mean, the shaft, the jaws, and the threaded rod. As far as issues with this, number one is it is hefty. Not quite as heavy as I thought it would be, but the addition of these long vice jaws on the back, they really make it unnecessarily weighty. Also, being on the back really doesn't help. I'm actually surprised he didn't classify this as a 3-in-1 tool, being a wrench, a vice, and a hammer. But number 2, this screw. I was sure this screw would be a problem. You can see in the original drawings, it's got a beefy screw through here. Now, I figured that this would be some kind of Acme thread or something like that to help carry the lower jaw. I tested my luck and subbed in a piece of M12 threaded rod. My main concern was that in turning the shaft and moving this jaw, it would cause it to canter and bind up against the handle here, but it actually works quite well, surprisingly. Now number three is a big one. You know, when you're looking at these old patents, they're not exactly drawn to scale. So this would have been drawn by some, I don't know, clerk in the lawyer's office or in the patent office, something like that. And typically there are some details that either get omitted or not explained or don't make sense. Perhaps they get lost in translation. I always err on the side of it was probably designed better when I find these issues, and I put in little fixes as I'm going. Sort of a perfect example here is the detail on this cross section. So for each of the jaws, they look very similar, which means either they were both threaded, which wouldn't work because this would just act as a nut to this bolt and it just wouldn't go anywhere, or if they were both cut through, this shaft wouldn't be gripping onto anything and the jaw wouldn't move. So I figured that this lower jaw must be threaded and the upper jaw is just cut straight through with some kind of retention mechanism, maybe a ring clipped onto the thread that would retain against this side of this upper jaw. Well, Mr. Russell actually details how these jaws should be cut, and as we thought, this lower one should be threaded, but the upper jaw is just cut straight through, meaning this is actually in the design. Now that's a significant problem because now you can't turn your wrench upside down. So under normal circumstances, I would have just assumed that the detail was omitted, and I would have perhaps put a ring in here, recessed back into the jaw, or narrowed the thickness of this rod and only drilled a narrower hole up here that would keep this screw into place. But yeah, he says that's how it should be designed. So yeah, big problem there. Number 4, the bench vice aspect. Now, these are tiny jaws for a vice, obviously. There's also wobble, as one would expect. the mounting bracket, so in the description it was described as a square tube mounted on a plate. I've gone with a bit of a beefier setup here with a flat bar milled out, welded on a top cap, so that this can slide in here like so. So given that this would be on the edge of your bench, the minimum distance where your jaws are from the mounting point and the workpiece is this sort of, I don't know, what is that in yank? What is that? 4 inches? 6 inches? So this is a pretty small footprint for a vise. I don't know about you guys, but anytime I got something in a vise, I'm about to go pretty hard on it. And having it set so far out from the bench with such a small footprint, you now have a big lever that you're working on. Don't know how long that's going to stay put to your bench there. And also, I put in a M5 thread up here. Of course, a single screw is not going to stop this thing from sliding in and out. Other minor things, I mean, there's no sort of knurling on the tool here, so you want to be using it with any kind of grease on your hands. But you know, other than that, it's not terrible. I mean, it's not good, but as with so many of these multi-tools, you slap two tools together and you end up with two pretty crap tools. Not a great wrench, way too heavy. You're not going to be getting it into any tight spaces, and a fairly crap bench vise. So, a lot of fun to make, and I hope it was fun to watch. Thanks for joining me. Catch you next time. Cheers.